Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're leaving the bright daylight behind and diving straight into the rain-slicked, neon-drenched world of a story called The Mnemonic. We're going to break down its incredible opening chapter. It's a literal masterclass in cyberpunk noir, and it introduces a premise that is just terrifying. Imagine a world where your memories aren't actually your own anymore. They're a commodity, something that can be harvested, traded, or just deleted entirely. It's a totally chilling concept, and the world building? Man, it is dense. So, let's jump straight into the dark.
Okay, let's dive into this. We start right at the micro level, thrust into the claustrophobic tension of a mnemonic extraction clinic. The story opens with this incredibly evocative detail. Rian standing in the dim light, simply listening to another man breathe. I mean, you can feel the tension, right? This isn't some hospital setting designed to heal people. No, it's a place where things are quietly, clinically taken. The air is heavy, the lighting is super dim, and the focus is entirely on this mechanical, measured sound of breathing. It instantly sets this intense mood of quiet dread.
And the guy listening to that breathing? That's our protagonist, Rian Solis. His pulse is sitting at a steady, unyielding 62 beats per minute. He is totally controlled, highly tactical, and honestly, eerily empty. See, Rian is an extraction technician. His movements have absolutely zero wasted motion, kind of like a surgeon wielding a scalpel. He's almost robotic in his calm, basically serving as a perfectly tuned instrument for a very delicate and very dark job.
Which brings us to the whole core mechanism of this world, extraction. Listen, this isn't just someone hitting a metaphorical delete key on a hard drive. It is the physical, sinister harvesting of human experience. Neural pathways are literally removed from the brain and stored in these glowing blue crystalline vials. And what it leaves behind? The story describes it as a smooth, polished emptiness in the subject's mind. Just imagine that for a second, losing a piece of yourself and feeling nothing but a physical void.
The procedure itself is just chillingly routine. First, Rian physically anchors the unconscious subject by applying slight pressure to the neck, just to remind the body where it is. Then, he calibrates the neural interface, jacking into these dark metal ports installed directly on the patient's spine. Step 3, he monitors the data flow integrity, basically studying the very architecture of the patient's mind. And finally, the extraction itself. You see the memories light up blue on his display, and then they just fade to gray as they're siphoned into the vial forever.
So, who's the guy on the table? His name is Arlen Voss, and trust me, he is not here voluntarily. Voss is a former auditor for the megacorporation Mnemonic, and, well, he saw something in the company books he definitely shouldn't have seen. So what does the corporation do? They bring him in under the guise of standard preventive maintenance. They are literally stealing 6 entire months of his life just to cover their tracks. Think about that. He's going to wake up in under an hour, go home to his wife, and never even realize a massive chunk of his identity was just stolen.
So the crucial point is that the true horror of this cyberpunk world isn't physical gore or violence. The real terror lies in the absence, that smooth, polished emptiness left behind in a person's identity. The victim doesn't wake up screaming in pain. They wake up feeling this vague, unnameable void. It's the ultimate violation, really, because the corporation is quite literally rewriting who these people are from the inside out.
Let's move to and see how this builds. We need to zoom out from this tiny claustrophobic clinic. 580 million. Let that number sink in. That is the staggering population of the megacity where all of this is taking place. It's enough people to fill up an entire country, just crammed into one massive space. The sheer scale of the system that permits and actually relies on these neural extractions is completely mind-boggling.
Welcome to Aonach Mor. The name actually translates from Old Gaelic to the Great Assembly, and it is a sprawling megalopolis built right over the submerged remains of Ireland and Britain following a massive climate collapse. All the old coastlines, completely buried under concrete, it's this perpetual rain-slicked labyrinth of vertical arcologies that climbs so incredibly high into the sky that seeing the sun is practically a myth. It's a brutal environment that physically and psychologically presses down on everyone living there.
And like any masterfully crafted cyberpunk setting, geography is destiny here. Up in the pristine upper sectors, you've got the corporate elite living in these gorgeous penthouses with glass walls, breathing perfectly filtered air and drinking pure water. But down in the lower sectors, man, it is a totally different reality. Down there, we're talking chemical rain, wet concrete, rust, and these subterranean warrens where the drainage systems are literally centuries old and just constantly failing.
Down in those gritty lower levels, we find something truly disturbing that was born from this technology, the memory market. It's this sprawling underground bazaar where human identity itself has become a cheap, tradable commodity. Seriously, you can go there and buy authentic childhoods, the feeling of a first kiss, or even someone else's severe trauma. All of it glowing in these little glass vials, sold right next to street food. It is such a haunting commodification of the human soul.
And this brilliantly illustrates how Aonach Mor functions as a giant, oppressive machine. See, the city doesn't just forget things, it stores them. It's a hyper-surveillance state managed by a massive system known as the archivist. The air, the water, the data, the citizens' very memories, it's all tracked, logged, and filtered. The city's corporate overlords hold on to absolutely everything its citizens lose. In a way, the city itself is basically an archive of stolen lives and erased histories.
But you know, in a perfect, closed-loop machine, what happens when a gear just refuses to turn? Who is the anomaly in the system? Because right at the edge of Rian's highly monitored 62 beats per minute reality, there is a glitch. There's this one impossible thing that this rigid, all-seeing surveillance state simply cannot track.
To put it in perspective, in Aonach Mor, every single breath of a tracked citizen is logged, audited, and heavily monitored. But then, we have the woman in yellow. She is utterly impossible. Completely untrackable. She has no recorded pulse, and she doesn't exist in any database anywhere. In a city that relentlessly records absolutely everything, her total, ghost-like silence is just deafening.
Her visual traits are hauntingly specific and, honestly, deeply unsettling. She always wears this faded yellow dress. She is totally invisible to the archivist's scanners, and, while everything else in Aonach Mor is constantly moving or getting slammed by rain, she appears perfectly, impossibly still. She haunts the very edges of Rian's vision, showing up at these crucial moments during his extractions or walks through the city. And most importantly, she always stands with one hand raised, her palm facing out.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the significance of her exact gesture. It's not a greeting. It's not a warning. It is a promise. It serves as this incredibly powerful motif of absolute defiance against corporate erasure. Think about it. In a world where your very identity can be scooped out with a scalpel and locked in a corporate vault, her raised palm simply says, stop. It tells Rian, and us as the reader, that something, somewhere, remembers exactly what was taken.
Which brings us to the ultimate hook of this explainer. What actually happens when a perfect system encounters a memory that absolutely refuses to be erased? The collision between the cold, clinical extraction of Aonach Mor and the impossible anomaly of the woman in yellow, well, that's the spark that ignites this entire thriller. It leaves us with a really chilling thought to chew on. If your memories can be stolen and traded like pocket change, what is it that actually makes you you? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive today, and I'll catch you in the next one.